You're listening to a podcast from thespoilist.com. Welcome to First Contact, the void that you can listen to. I'm Andrew.
I'm James.
And I'm Alex.
This time we are watching The Inner Light. It first aired 1st of June 1992. It had a teleplay by Morgan Gendel and Peter Allen Fields, based on a story by Morgan Gendel, and it was directed by Peter Lauritsen. James, what happens in this one?
After doing some space stuff to bulk out the captain's log, the Enterprise encounters a probe of unknown origin. It emits a pulse which hits Captain Picard. He awakens on an unfamiliar world and is told his name is Kamin, an iron weaver recovering from a fever on a pre-war planet called Kataan, and he's married to Eline. Picard is initially reluctant to accept this as truth, but finds the people to be peaceful and friendly. As the years pass, he comes to accept his new life, has children with his wife, and finds solace in playing his flute, but he has concerns about the future of the planet due to the ongoing drought. Over the years, he investigates the cause, all while losing friends and family. He eventually discovers that the planet is dying due to the changes in its sun. A probe is launched, the probe the Enterprise encounters right at the beginning of the episode. Picard wakes up back on the Enterprise with a lifetime of memories, forever a changed man. Until next week.
Well, Alex, you've never seen this one before. What did you think of it?
No, I say that. I have watched it twice now because we've had to delay recording after just life got in the way, a tumultuous few months, just stress, work, and all manner of things. So it's been really nice to go to such a cheerful episode. Really, really nice and upbeat, and nothing about the just the impending threat of entropy and death. So thanks.
It's bittersweet.
Don't get me wrong. It's very good. Possibly not where I was in the headspace for at the time. Twice.
I mean, generally, this comes up as one of the best episodes of Star Trek in most surveys. Certainly Star Trek Next Generation, but it's usually in the top 10 episodes of Star Trek. The Hollywood Reporter ranked it 4th best episode of Star Trek. Empire ranked it 10th best Star Trek episode. Variety listed it as the best episode of Star Trek Next Generation. Nerdist ranked it as the 2nd best episode of Star Trek Next Generation. Screen Rant rated it as the 2nd most romantic episode of Star Trek for the relationship between Picard and Eline. Den of Geek ranked it as one of the top 25 must-watch episodes of Star Trek Next Generation. That feels damning with faint praise, doesn't it? Vulture listed it as one of the best episodes of Star Trek Next Generation. Do you think it's up there? Do you think it's that good? You've watched a lot of Star Trek Next Generation now. Did it leave you coming, well, this is a quality 45 minutes of drama?
Yeah, I'd say so. I think it's the cream of the crop of what I've been watching. I couldn't possibly tell you where it ranked, mainly because I've forgotten as much Star Trek as I've watched by now. But I mean,
is it above or below Code of Honor?
Well, I am a fan of the old racism. Just visions of that being clipped and put on TikTok. That's.
Are you doing an impression of an AI?
But yeah, it's hard to say where it comes, other than obviously it's a quality one at the top. I think it's interesting that the sci-fi elements are kind of not inconsequential. That's the wrong phrase, but do you know what I mean? Although it wraps the plot up, the things that make it good are not necessarily anything that is particularly sci-fi. In as much as the sort of the usual Star Trek trappings. If anything, it feels a bit closer to a sort of 1970s BBC science fiction, like something like Survivors, or even sort of 90s ITV sci-fi like The Last Train, or Cold Lazarus.
I never thought this would be compared to The Last Train.
Who even remembers The Last Train apart from me and you? I never see anyone talk about it.
I've never even heard of it.
Wow.
Let me tell you.
We're going to do a podcast.
For a sci-fi drama written by one of the writers of Life on Mars, just before Life on Mars, you'd think it was better remembered. With a notable lead, Nicola Walker's in the lead, ends with a crucifixion. Spoilers for a 20-plus-year-old ITV drama that, as far as I'm aware, is completely unavailable on streaming or any physical media.
Maybe it's just the name. You know, the Last Train is not great.
No. I mean, neither was the programme itself, but it was fine.
And I think the point you made about the sci-fi elements are right. And I think the writers understand that structurally as well. Because if you think, and I'm going to compare this to an episode of Red Dwarf, listeners, which may come as a surprise to you. If you think of Back to Reality, the entire tension in that episode is this really happening? Is this actually reality? Was everything we've watched, did that not happen? This episode actually dismisses that quite early on with Picard still, the cuts back to the Enterprise and Picard lying down there. The tension of the episode is not, oh, what was that all a dream and that wasn't real? That's not where that is. It is the exploration for the character of Picard of a different life, a different kind of life, one that he has never been able to have. And I'm not saying it's about, children give your life meaning, although there are certainly elements of that in it, but it is about, can you have a worthwhile life in a different way? Can you experience the different things? Is it the people that you meet and the connections that you make that actually matter? It's that profound impact. It's not, was Star Trek not real all along? It's not that science fiction. It is very much the human drama element of it, and that is, I think, just so efficiently done. Just the storytelling, the direction, the writing, the performances. I mean, it's done on one set, but I just think it's just a very clever episode. The way everything is portrayed. There is a drought. There is bright lights. We have the tree in the centre of the village. Just everything that they do, they manage to do quickly. The friendship between Picard and Bataille and his death. And it's like, they don't show it. They don't have a big dramatic scene, but you feel the impact of it. You feel the passing of time. The way his daughter, for example, it shows that she is an outdoor type. Her playing in the sand, it's just instantly, you understand who that child is and why they're like their father. I just think for 45 minutes, this is just so dense. And like, you can break it down in the structure, the way it does it, the way when they cut back to the Enterprise and there's a time jump. Just beautifully done. And I wish they made TV like this still. It just is, it makes me feel something. And I love it.
It felt like they were aware of what they needed to avoid. Because you can see a version of this episode in season 1 and 2. And in fact, they've done episodes like this even later on. I think Future Tense was season 4. That's where Riker wakes up and it's the future and he's lost all his memories of the past. And this isn't a dissimilar idea. If Picard wakes up on this planet and, they're telling him he's somebody else and all his memories are false, if you don't understand what's going on from an audience perspective, you can think it's going to be one of those sorts of episodes that Picard has been transported somewhere and it's, it's all a mystery about discovering what's really going on. And yeah, there is a tiny human mystery, but it's not a threat. The way that unfolds in a much more subtle way than an episode like Future Tense. Nothing against it. That was a good episode, but it feels, as a lot of Star Trek: The Next Generation does by now, so much more self-aware of itself, and it makes it so much better for it.
I think there's two elements where it stands out from what it would have done in season 2. I mean, one is definitely that they have the flashes, back to the present day on the ship, seeing Picard lying there to show you, oh no, yeah, he's still there. There's something going on, but it's not a back to reality situation that the original reality is false. We're still seeing it, but they don't overplay it. And in season 2, I think they absolutely would have overplayed that with constant cutting back to it. But the other element that they also probably would have done if you didn't cut back to it would be to have pretty much from the start to the end Picard constantly talking about, well, I deny this reality, it's not real, which he does at the start, but reasonably quickly it changes to adapting fully to the situation he's in, which is much better for the audience because that's what the audience is kind of invested in at that point. We all know that it's not real, so to labour on that point does nothing for the episode. And this is a very clear example of, yes, learning as they've gone on and not doing that where they would have done it in the past.
And I wonder from a character point of view, how that's done. It feels, obviously, Picard is a scientist. He's a man who will question everything. He will interrogate. And it feels that the situation is so unhostile, so banal, that for him to continue to insist he's been kidnapped or that he's a prisoner or any of these other things when he's surrounded by a loving wife and loyal friends and a simple community, it just feels like, well, what can he do to fight that? What is it he can do? He's got no access to space. He's got no access to communications. So he is essentially trapped there, and either you make the best of that and accept the reality, or you just abandon everything that you supposedly know and become a hermit in the woods somewhere. I guess when I first watched this, when I was a young man, a child, essentially, I always wondered, well, how much is Picard in control of his own narrative? Was Kamin a real man? Is he just playing out what is given to him, or is he in control? Can he change what happens? Because essentially the narrative will always be, if he's to encounter these people, if they're the memories he's to tell people about, that Eline was real and Maribor was real and Bataille was real, these are real people. So are the choices he makes actually having any actions? This is probably going to get horribly philosophical. Or is he just determined to play out a set narrative?
Well, I mean, his findings that basically they're doomed are revealed later in the episode to already be known by the scientists on the planet. So anything he can discover is probably behind where they were anyway. You know, he didn't have the technology to really understand what was going on from his position. So there's no way he could have really changed things.
I don't even mean like changing things. I just mean in terms of
how much agency.
Does he have free will in the simulation, or is it just what will happen will happen? He's obviously not passive because he has his memories and he is able to kind of set out. But if he had chosen to, when the probe first connected to him, could he have just walked away and left and lived in the woods? Or would he always come back to the village and his family?
And also, was there a specific choice from the probe to pick him? Because, you know, what if a Klingon ship turned up instead?
Or the Borg?
I think that's probably the most accurate reading that of a ship full of people, that's the person that's selected because it's the closest approximation to the person that you're inhabiting.
And it doesn't matter, and this is weird nitpicky stuff, because the story works as the story. And yeah, but it's just sort of one of those things that you go, okay, how real are all these people? Are these composite characters? And he's obviously not an important man. He is just an iron weaver who lives in a simple village. Uh, And I think it's actually the world building is really interesting because obviously it seems quite old fashioned in some ways, but they then do have some advanced technology. Obviously, the probe itself is incredibly advanced in terms of that technology, or incredibly different in terms of the technology. Something that the Federation doesn't really understand, certainly that way of imprinting and sending years of memories in minutes into someone's minds. But you know what, it was sent up in a rocket ship, but is able to track with a Galaxy class starship. Again, it doesn't matter, but if you're thinking about it too much, do you question that in any way?
I think it's one of those things that you just ignore.
Yeah, I think I can easily enough believe that they can be advanced in certain areas, but not in others. I think.
I would counter the idea that these people weren't important. I mean, whether they're real or not, I think that they were either chosen or they were created to represent what the planet was about. Because they wanted to keep their legacy alive through Picard, or whoever the probe chose. And these are the people who they chose to represent their society.
I mean, they could have put a few more things on board that probe at the end, to be honest, like a few records, some, I don't know, some genetic samples, some seeds. But yes, I agree. I think that's very much the whole point.
Yes, you'd assume that it was purposefully picked, that that was the person that they were trying to go for. You don't want to find that it's Picard has to experience this society through Dennis, the local prowler. I discovered a lot about this society, though, mostly from bushes.
Putting the flute in the probe, it did sell for $190,000 in 2021. So,
Right.
I mean, that's,
It's one of a kind, isn't it?
yeah. Where else in this world are you going to get a Resican flute?
Can we talk guest cast? Because I think this is just great. Like, genuinely, everyone in their roles, no matter how small. Like, I'd like to start off with the Resic administrator, played by Scott Jake, who I just think does such a good politician. Just the mannerisms. Thank you for your suggestion. That's very helpful. I'll listen to that. But like everything, just I think sells the society. Just efficient. And you've got Margot Rose as Eline. A plausible partner, I think, for Patrick Stewart and for Picard. I think that's a very good and very solid performance.
It's possibly the strongest ensemble cast that there's been outside of the main cast. There's not really a dud anywhere in there. There's no child actor just stinking up the room.
Keep the child actor silent. That's fine. But even Meribor, like that, as Kamin's daughter, like Jennifer Nash plays that. She's in 2 scenes, but you just get that lifetime of relationships from those 2 scenes. It just it feels so lived in the world. It just is one of those occasions where everything just came together and made it work. It's that lightning strike of magic. Because like some of the dialogue, I think on the Enterprise, and we know that Star Trek Next Generation has weird stilted dialogue, and that is one of the reasons why it's timeless. But it's all very utilitarian, a lot of it. But of good actors, that doesn't really matter because it sells it. It sells the reality of it.
It seems silly to say it, but obviously Patrick Stewart's rather good,
isn't he?
But on a serious note, it's one of the stronger performances he's given up to this point. And I mean, skipping ahead a little bit, but the scene at the end where he's left alone in his room and receives the flute in real life from the probe, the little grip that he does at the end of it, that little sort of emotional shake that he has, is possibly one of the finest bits of acting he's done in this show. Not a word to it, but the emotion on it is so clear.
You know, we've talked about the Borg incident and the impact that has on his character. This is one of those moments, one of these life experiences that you wouldn't expect to leave a person. It's an entire lifetime. It's, well, at least 30 years of experiences that he has, and I don't know if it fades away like a dream, or if that sticks with you, if you have to get used to being your old self again. I cannot imagine if I woke up tomorrow and someone said, well, you've got to live your life from 30 years ago, go to school and try and work out how to do maths again. Like as a concept, that is a mind-blowing thing. Go back, and would you want to, and could you, or would you just drift off and have a different life? No, because it's episodic television and that's not how that works. You know, you could even argue that this is a healing process for Picard, or maybe it's not, maybe it's traumatic. You could argue that this is another form of attack, a form of mind control even.
Yeah, they don't really care about whether Picard wanted these memories or not. I mean, it's the perfect person for this, because he would have consented if he was asked, if he understood there was a society that has died out and he's the only person who can truly appreciate what made their society special, he would have accepted the probe. But they didn't ask.
Yeah, saying you must remember this and then forcing someone to go and relive a series of events. What monsters would put people through that?
Well, we're not going to do it again.
No, we're never
so
going to do
that's
it
fine.
again, yeah. Like the producers, we have learnt our lesson. Something actually, just talking about the effect on his character, I think is actually quite nicely set up, is that you have his conversation with Eline earlier on, where he's saying, you can't just expect me to forget the life that I've lived and adapt to this new life. Because what a wonderful turnaround that is at the end, that having had earlier, you can't expect me to forget about my life on the Enterprise, to then have to go back to the Enterprise and now not be able to forget this other life. And it's just a very neatly set up bit of dialogue that pays off well at the end.
You know, it would have been better if at the end he just became suicidal and threatened to kill himself with a phaser.
Just dived the Enterprise straight into the sun.
I'm making a reference to a DS9 episode where a character is in prison in their head for how many years was it? 30 years?
Yeah. Hard Time from Deep Space Nine, which is the mirror to this episode, which is the same concept, but what if you had an absolutely horrible time? And then you can't cope with your everyday life, except Chief O'Brien had such a horrible life anyway a lot of the time that it probably wasn't that different.
It does feel at times Patrick Stewart is a bit of a contradiction, because he is fantastic in these sorts of episodes more than any other. And Patrick Stewart does say this is his favourite episode of Star Trek. Yet, he always wants to end up doing the action stuff. You know, we saw it in the movies, and there's a few episodes where they said, oh yeah, okay, you can be, the cool action hero. In fact, I think the writer of this episode went on to write the episode which was Die Hard on a Spaceship, didn't he?
Yeah, Starship Mine was indeed written by Morgan Gendel.
It just feels like that Patrick Stewart does recognise that these are the episodes that really elevate Star Trek and show how good of an actor he really is. And I'm not pigeonholing Star Trek, but then he always wants it to just be action adventure. And he wants to get the sexy lady as well.
Going into the production meeting saying, now, what I want from this season is an episode with a really meaty acting part, something I can really show my chops in. And if I could also show my nipples and hold a big gun, I think we're on to a winner.
It's one of those episodes you want to show people who say, well, Star Trek's just stupid, Star Trek's just space lasers and people with silly heads. And you want to say, no, it's this. This is what Star Trek is. It's an exploration of the human condition, of love and regret and the inevitable death of everyone. It's and you could take this script now and you could do it. You could do this in a Star Trek. You could do this in any Star Trek show with any one of the leads, I think. And I think that's always the sign of a great Star Trek episode. I always say the same about the Deep Space Nine episode Children of Time, which is just like a perfect Star Trek episode. And I think this is as well. It is timeless.
Well, the trope that it's playing on is a timeless trope in and of itself as well. I mean, what is the theme of this, if not what you see in, say, every zombie film ever? Just the inevitability of society will collapse. It's just a matter of time. I mean, and I haven't read anything about the intentions of the writers, but I assume that this is essentially a big climate change parallel.
I don't think it really is.
Is it not? I mean, it's literally about droughts and crops failing.
It is, but I don't think that was specifically an intention. Not from what I've read.
Well, if not, it's surprising. But
I was thinking that if this were made today, they'd probably play that up a lot more.
For the first half of it, essentially, if you want a recent example, we're kind of looking at something like Don't Look Up, the knowledge that everything's coming to an end. There's a bit of a shift in the second half of this, I would say, that you've had that focus on everything's going to die, to then being the ramifications of, so what does that mean for children? What does that mean for you trying to carry on life? And then what are the implications that you then put onto the life you create? Which is not necessarily playing on the same. I mean, it is part of the same trope, but I would say that's sort of more of a sort of, just in writing terms, just a sort of general exploration of the fear that every parent goes through about that thought that goes through your mind of what kind of world am I bringing a child into?
I mean, there is that line. I can't remember the exact line, but they're referring to the child and basically says that he's not going to have a life.
And as you say, the words "have a life." Peter Allen Fields obviously wrote the episode "Half a Life," which again is about a dying star.
I'm sure he was a thrill at parties.
But I guess that is a theme that he is interested in. And obviously it plays very well in science fiction.
Mm.
The burning of the light, even when Picard wakes up, there's... And that in that performance from Patrick Stewart as well, that sort of smile as he goes on to the turbo lift and he says, "Dr. Crusher." It's almost that amusement that I've got a second chance. I can do life again. And it's just all very well played out.
Really, they do a good job in managing to not make it a lot more depressing.
It's sort of reaching the peak of that at exactly the point that they cut it off, I would say, because that it's towards the end of that it becomes a lot more explicit. It breaks my heart to see my grandson knowing that he should have a full life and he won't get one. It's not very long after that until you then have the turnaround. Well, I mean, it's literally the next scene, isn't it? They go outside and then everything is revealed to him that it's not that it's going to be too late, it's that it already has been too late. Everyone's been dead for however many years, and it's just a memory. Similar in certain aspects to sort of the end of the Stephen Moffat run of Doctor Who.
But that is hopeful in some ways. It's a life remembered is a good life. In some ways, as a message. Obviously, you're right. What happens next and how that society breaks down, you don't really want to think about. That's fairly horrendous. However, as you say, all the right timing.
I was really surprised that there wasn't like a novel or a comic about the breakdown of that society. Like it devolved into a Mad Max scenario or something like that.
Oh, there's bound to be a Memory Alpha article on it, surely. Sure.
No, nothing.
Genuinely, considering some of the other shit that they've created. Just before the society completely dissolved, they were eating each other's brains with spoons. That's the sort of thing I was expecting that you'd suddenly pull out during Quickfire.
Let's talk about the Enterprise scenes, which are basically there as kind of chapter buffers in between different points in Kamin's life. But they're still not too perfunctory. You could have just had them standing over him going, yeah, he's never passed out like this before. But they do move it on. There is at least a little bit of drama. These guys know what they're doing. He collapses, there's the doctor, Worf makes a terrible suggestion, which is instantly dismissed, and then they try to stop the beam. That doesn't go well, that has impacts in the world. They trace it to the planet, there's an investigation aspect. So all these little elements just actually keep you intrigued on both sides of it, and give the regulars something to do on their single set that they occupy this week. But I think it's just, yeah, that's also well done. You could have completely ignored that for the entire run of this episode. You didn't have to go back to them. And some people would argue, well, that actually undermines it. But as we've discussed, that's not what this is.
It's just enough to say it is Star Trek. You haven't switched on to something else. It's also a bit of a reminder that this could have been so much worse if you'd had, say, all of the main bridge crew being put into this reality. Because it could have quite easily gone in that direction. That they're all members of this society, and that would be awful.
Well, let's see if there's anything else to say about this one in Quickfire.
Quickfire.
This episode is named after the Beatles song, The Inner Light, which was written by George Harrison, the B-side to 1968 single Lady Madonna. The lyrics of Harrison's song were based on the 47th chapter of the Tao Te Ching. So, look that one up.
Imagine if they'd have named this episode after another Beatles song. I'd have been really confused if this was called Drive My Car.
Octopus's Garden.
Mean Mr. Mustard.
Across the Universe would have worked.
Why don't we do it in the road? That would have obviously been a season 1 episode. Everybody's got something to hide, except for me and my monkey. Terribly offensive episode.
Picard's flute was meant to appear in Star Trek Nemesis, but the scene ended up getting deleted because they decided that the dune buggy was much more important.
The amazing thing about Star Trek Nemesis is that every single one of the deleted scenes is better than any of the scenes in the film.
I just can't imagine that in that film. I can't imagine some sort of delicate moment of pathos like that. In that film, I'd much more expect him to use it to stab someone in the neck.
Yeah, that was what we did.
It's Picard and Data discussing the crew going their own ways. So and this is the thing, Star Trek Nemesis, I think that there is a good film in there. It was just edited by somebody who did not understand Star Trek.
I don't think there's a good film in there. I think there's a passable film in there. But I don't know. We'll get to that. Maybe. Batai, the son of Kamin, not the older guy, was played by Daniel Stewart, who is Patrick Stewart's son, which was nice.
On a similar note, I was turning to the Nitpicker's Guide, although it's not that interesting. It's mostly Phil Farrand complaining about flutes. But looking at the Star Trek Next Generation Companion, that's perhaps a more interesting source. It says that another piece of interesting trivia is that Margot Rose's resume includes her role as one of 2 prostitutes in the film 48 Hours. Oh, where her partner was Denise Crosby. Okay, sorry. That makes it a little more obvious as to why that was. I thought they were just commenting as if that was a particularly notable thing. I mean, either way, it's clutching at straws a little bit.
Everyone's got to start somewhere.
Richard Reel, who plays Bataille, Picard's old friend, most often seen with a mustache. I think he was he's done all sorts of genre TV. I think he was Buffy's Watcher in Buffy the Vampire Slayer in a flashback sequence. He's provided Santa Claus in 8 different projects, including 5 films, 2 television shows, and 1 TV movie, which is some great stuff. He also went in to be in a lot more Star Trek. He is Seamus in Star Trek Voyager episodes Fairhaven and Spirit Folk, which if you haven't seen them, he's also Jeremy Lucas in Star Trek episode 4th season Arc, Cold Station 12 and The Augments. Now, that is a good one. You should watch those ones.
Yeah, when you see him with the mustache, you're like, oh, I know him. He's been in things.
The tune that Kamin's son plays on the flute was adapted into the theme tune for Star Trek Picard.
Was it?
Yeah.
I genuinely didn't recognize. I mean, did you know that when we were watching Picard? Did we discuss this? I have no memory.
No, I don't think anybody clocked it until after.
Right.
Or certainly it might not have been interesting enough for us to say. I saw a video and I thought it was faked, where someone had just laid the Star Trek Picard tune. But no, as I have gone, oh, it's just that bit where it goes da 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 da. That's the Star Trek Picard theme tune.
I mean, I'm sure I'd probably recognize it easier watching this episode if I had any memory of how the theme tune for Star Trek Picard went.
Well, it went different every season, so I wouldn't worry about it too much.
The majority of my memories are just him getting hit by that car.
I think that might be my favourite bit in all of modern Star Trek.
So they were always looking for an unlived life type scenario, but Brannon Braga and Joe Minoski couldn't make it work, but it was revived when Morgan Gendel pitched this. My thought was, what if some civilization had been through some terrible war and didn't want others to repeat it? Picard and Riker are hit with the probe and find themselves back on a planet with stormtroopers coming. See, Alex, it's that exact thing you didn't want to happen. They have to finish the story and get back to the Enterprise. This sounds very, very like the Royale. It seemed entirely real to them while they were there, and they had to escape these marching soldiers in a war which was leading up to a nuclear holocaust. Meanwhile, aboard the ship, they're in comas. That actually sounds a bit like stuff that was in Voyager/Enterprise. But the alternate reality premise lived on, and they adapted it. And this is why you have writers' rooms. So, a community destroyed in a war who wanted to pass their story on through the probe? Yeah, but what if it's not a war? Great. There's like several outlines were pitched for it before it arrived at that, and it obviously worked out very, very well. This is the process of someone pitching and good people making that idea work before the person goes back and writes it.
Yeah, I can't really imagine, or I don't want to imagine, a version which is more like Threads, but with Geordie and Worf doing some sort of shitty double act while Riker chats up the survivors. Yeah, that's well avoided.
Joe Minoski said that Michael Piller also did a substantial uncredited rewrite on the dialogue in this episode.
Apparently there was a sequel to The Inner Light called The Outer Light. What?
I was hoping you'd mention this. It was on trekmovie.com. They got the pitch which Morgan Gendel had made, which was rejected, and rightly so. I think you can still find it out there on the internet if you want to. The art style is different. People at the time were very mean about it in the comment section, as is traditional on the internet. Like, it's an interesting curio of a road less travelled. So if you want to look at that, I'd sort of recommend it, but I wouldn't say that it's great.
I'm sorry, what the hell is it? Is it a fan film? Is it like a comic or?
No, it's just a comic book.
Right.
It's a digital comic book. So sorry I didn't mention that. Yes, so it was pitched and then Trek Movie got hold of the script and they got it adapted into a kind of digital comic book that they put on their website, which is out there. I don't know if it ever got finished, to be honest, but I certainly started reading it and then drifted away.
What's it actually about?
So this is what the writer said in an AMA. He says he had a kick-ass idea for a sequel. The people in his nucleonic mind dream, Eline, Bataille, the others, were mostly actual scientists on Cataan's Manhattan Project to save their civilization one way or another. They were the actors playing roles in this interactive mind meld since they couldn't dare expose to outsiders to the knowledge that their planet was doomed. But there was a plan B. They did come up with a version of the probe big enough to hold a few of them in suspended animation.
Oh, for God's sake.
And the Enterprise finds them having been drifting in space for 1,000 years. And they beam the passengers on board. And one of them is Eline, and Picard sees her. And this is his words. He's like, "This is my wife." And she sees him and goes, "Who the F are you?" And then in brackets, "It's a very emotional story."
I wonder why they rejected that. It sounds great.
They turned him down saying, "We don't do sequels."
That's not true, though, is it? It's not true. Look at all those Worf episodes. I genuinely thought when you said it was a sequel, it was more just watching their society dissolve back to, the brains and spoons thing.
It's so bad that even Memory Beta was like, no, I'm not including it.
Wow.
They have standards.
I think if you're coming up with a story and it gets to that point of all these characters that are definitely dead, guess what? Cryogenics. I think that's the point to just stop that idea.
They definitely came up with the title first, didn't they? The Outer Light.
Awful.
That's a porch light.
Have you turned off the outer light?
Episodes about one of the lights on the Enterprise flickering on the front of the ship, and they have to go out and fix it.
Well, that is us done for another episode. Thank you for joining us. We will be back once again at some point, and we will be talking about Time's Arrow, both parts of it. So don't just watch one if you're watching along, and if you are watching along, what is wrong with you? Goodbye.
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 If only there could be a probe which has all the memories of a Star Trek fan, so you could experience 30 years of watching Star Trek.
That sounds great.
I mean, I basically do that reading Phil Farron's bloody book.
A probe which has all of Phil Farron's memories implanted into your head.
I lived the life of this society. I learned their ways. I learned their strange hang-ups. They were surprisingly right-wing.
Jesus, I wonder what you get in the box at the end.
It'd be another one of his bloody books.